A power he does not possess. Donald Trump took to social media in the middle of the night, no less. This sounds made up. This is true. This really happened, guys. To say he's going to void a number of the pardons President Joe Biden issued in his final hours as president. Trump claimed with zero evidence in the middle of the night on social media that the preemptive pardons President Biden issued to the January 6 Select Committee members are somehow invalid because they were signed using an auto pen. The auto pen is a commonly used device that replicates a handwritten signature. Most presidents use them. He also alleged that President Biden didn't know about the pardons and that the committee members would be, quote, subject to investigation at the highest level, end quote. Again, all this in a middle of the night tweet. Trump's claim is a clear affront to the Constitution, which, for better or worse, gives any president the broad power to issue pardons and makes no provision for later presidents to rescind them in the middle of the night on social media. New York Times describes Trump's new attack on the rule of law like this, quote, Trump's assertion, which embraced a baseless right-wing conspiracy theory about former President Joseph Biden, was a new escalation of his anti-democratic rhetoric. Implicit in his post was Trump's belief that the nation's laws should be whatever he decrees them to be. And it was a jolting reminder that his appetite for revenge has not been sated. Joining us at the table, former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill's is here. What do you think?
Well, be careful what you wish for, Donald Trump. I mean, can you imagine
unpardon all of his pardons?
Can you imagine unpardoning all the stuff he's done? I wonder how all those J6 folks that have been pardoned feel about him doing this. And frankly, I think an investigation into the January 6th committee would end up making him look bad. Trump, that is, not the people who participated in a fact-finding mission that was always factually based. I was never really crazy about that pardon in the first place. If I'd been a member of that committee, I would have said, like I think Adam Schiff did, bring it. Bring it, guy. You think you've got some way to put me in jail for doing my job? Then try it and see how the American public reacts. So in the middle of the night stuff, I mean, we know he's not well. I mean, a president of the United States is not up in the middle of the night retweeting conspiracy stuff that is made out of whole cloth. I mean, somebody who's normal. I mean, we know this is not a normal guy. This is a guy that is trying to bring a wrecking ball, not just to the services provided to Americans by the hard-earned dollars they pay to the government, but also a wrecking ball to our two branches of government and the checks and balances that our founding fathers relied on. The Supreme Court's going to have a lot of work to do. It will be very interesting to see. And Andrew and I have talked about it off camera many times before, and I've said it on this program before, the action of the next 2 years is primarily going to be in the courts.
I mean, I have a different theory on this. I read his poll, the NBC poll, pretty carefully, and it was sort of covered as 47% like what he's doing. Well, 47% is the total of a column called Somewhat Approve and Strongly Approve. The Strongly Approve is about 9%. The Disapprove column is higher, and the Strongly Disapprove is the whole bulk of it, right? So you've got all of the disapprove. So people that are unhappy about threatening war with Canada. I mean, how do people think we annex Canada? We would have to go to war.
Exactly.
So Trump has run for 9 years as an anti-war guy. He's now threatening war with Canada.
And Iran.
Yeah. And the economy is destabilizing, not in a way that makes his rich donors who sat on the sidelines in the election anxious or desperate. They deserve whatever anxiety they're experiencing, but in a way that causes serious fear about economic security for his base. So I think these things are shiny objects that he throws out in the middle of the night so that we don't cover what is really behind the first crosstab. Terrible polling news for him.
And by the way, I read that poll very carefully, too, and I did not get the takeaway that seems to be the headline everywhere, that the Democratic Party sucks. I get it, that everybody's frustrated about the Democratic Party, but that headline you see over and over again, I've not seen the headline over and over again. You know what Putin's approval rating was in that poll? 6. Putin's approval rating was 6. And this is the guy he's cozying up to. Russia's was maybe 2 or 3 points better. They have the worst approval rating in America. I mean, theirs is even worse than Elon Musk, and that's saying something. So, you know, the idea that we are not spending more time talking about that what America is seeing from him, whether it's Canada or him getting in bed with Putin and trying to pretend they didn't invade a sovereign nation and try to take their territory, that's where he's really on weak ground. And then, of course, we'll get to all the stuff he's going to cut that's really going to hurt his base, like Medicaid and all the ag support. You know, I don't see this going well for him the next 2 years. I really don't.
Well, and I think more importantly, it's not going well for him right now, but he does have the capacity. And I keep quoting Angelo Carasone, who talks about narrative dominance. He does have this narrative dominance. And because both the seeming defiance of two judges' orders on the immigration policy and the extra, you know, the New York Times describing it as basically extrajudicial and anti-democratic tweet last night, does drive us to ask people like you, can he do that?
Right. Well, by the way, there's breaking news on that, which is Judge Boasberg got a request from the government saying you don't need to have the 5 o'clock hearing. We'll decide whether there was contempt. We say there wasn't, so you don't need to have a hearing. Judge Boasberg just said denied, show up. So it looks like we're going forward at 5 o'clock, and so we'll have news about what Judge Boasberg says on that. I had the same reaction to this is what the president's doing here connects our first segment to the second, which is, I mean, he is by saying, you know, I can unpardon. I mean, that is just, I mean, it's not true. And it's just saying, you know what, there is no law. I just tell you what I'm doing and who's going to challenge me. I mean, it really is until someone actually says stop. And now we're seeing the court saying stop, and that may not even be enough. And so I think that is what we're seeing. Again, I'm not a pollster. I don't do sort of political analysis. I do watch people show up at town halls and think that they have a First Amendment right to speak. Mm-hmm. And so when you see that First Amendment being attacked in all sorts of ways, I don't think people actually signed up for, like, you know what, it's heads I win, tails you lose. There's no such thing as principle in this country. So I think that is when he's saying I'm going to sort of unpardon people, you know, that seems crazy.